All right, so this is the second time I've started recording this video. It's not Sunday when this is coming out. It's going to be like late Sunday night, early Monday probably when this comes out. But I wanted to do another politics video because it's been something that I've really wanted to talk about lately. I was on the fence. I wasn't sure if I really, really wanted to do another politics video or not. Just because they're hit or miss, and you never know who's going to be out there, and people get nuts about this stuff. All right, but I wanted to talk about it because a lot's happened this week. The DNC is getting ready to come up, and it's one of those things that just really gets me going. You know, I'm excited. I'm also terrified of what might happen. So real quick recap of some of the stuff that happened this week. Both Trump and Harris did economic things. Well, Trump tried to. So Harris laid out an economic policy. Pretty damn good one, if you ask me. It's not perfect. There's some room for improvement, but that's always the way it is when you first start with a policy. And regardless, it doesn't matter what your policy is, you have to have a Congress. So she's going to have the Congress in order to make any of this even potentially possible. But it's a good policy, at least on the surface, I like it. Trump, on the other hand, tried to lay out a policy and just utterly failed, tripped over his own 2 feet, could not figure out. He was showing Tic Tacs to try to explain inflation because he doesn't understand inflation and he doesn't understand tariffs. He was trying to explain tariffs and just... I don't understand how a man could serve as president of the United States and not understand what tariffs are. But he managed to flop it, so who knows? But that wasn't even the worst thing of the week. The worst thing of the week for Donald Trump was when he was talking about, he was doing a speech at some event, and he was talking about somebody he had given the Presidential Medal of Freedom to this woman, and he went ahead and said that the Presidential Medal of Freedom was better than the Medal of Honor. And some of his campaign people tried to walk it back, and they said, "Oh, you're taking it out of context." No, that's not taking it out of context. If you listen to the actual words that Donald Trump said, he does not respect the Medal of Honor, and the way that he talked about it, he is either ignorant or he absolutely hates veterans. Either way, I personally think that he hates veterans, but either way, he's not fit to be the Commander-in-Chief of the United States Armed Forces. Anyway, that wasn't actually the reason that I'm starting this video and doing this video is I wanted to go over this Meet the Press thing with Lindsey Graham today, because I feel like a lot of the time these people get on here and they'll get on the news and they'll try to defend Trump, and they'll say, "Oh, he's got policy, he's got this, he's got that." But, and this is a huge one, you can't sit there in 2016 going completely against, and the Haley did Nikki Haley did it this year. These people, they call him out. They talk about how wrong he is, how bad he is, how he's not fit to be president. And then they turn around and they kiss his ass. And Lindsey Graham did the exact same thing. And Republicans in 2016 did the exact same thing. I mean, if you even look at Vance, J.D. Vance, Trump's running mate, was the exact same thing. Calling him out, talking about how he wants to be a dictator. Vance called him America's Hitler, and yet, kissed the ring. Turned around, kissed the ring. The same thing Nikki Haley said. Nikki Haley called people out for kissing the ring, and then she's doing it now. And I bring her up into this too because she is going to be mentioned in this clip. We're going to play the clip. I'm going to stop it throughout because I really want to talk about the stuff that he's saying because this shit cannot go unchecked. Okay, so let me put on the headphones. I have not done a video like this where I've actually played a video and done all this in the background. So let's start this. Let me switch over to the proper screen here. So we've already got the video queued up. So we're going to start here, and she's going to talk, and then she's going to play a little bit of Nikki Haley, and then she's going to ask for his response. So let's see what she has to say and what they say first.
With some of the concerns that former President Trump's allies have had about him not staying on message in the way that he is talking about his new rival, Vice President Kamala.
And when she says not staying on message, she means not staying on message. The man's been all over the place. And the problem that he's had is he's been trying to find a nickname that fits because that's what Donald Trump does. He finds nicknames. Trump does not know normal English. Trump does not know policy, so he just tries to find nicknames, whatever will stick, and he goes after people. He went after her race. Like, How can you be sitting there and go after somebody's race because you don't understand biracial? Because Nikki Haley, because Kamala Harris is biracial. She's Indian. Her mother's Indian. Her father was Jamaican, so she's black and Indian. And J.D. Vance, Trump's running mate, is a white guy. His wife is Indian. Their children are biracial, and Trump acts like he doesn't even understand what biracial is, and it's just so insane. But let's get back into it.
Kamala Harris. Here's what Nikki Haley had to say about that. Take a look.
The campaign is not going to win talking about crowd sizes. It's not going to win talking about what race Kamala Harris is. It's not going to win talking about whether she's dumb. It's not. You can't win on those things. I think the campaign.
And she's absolutely right, except that Donald Trump has won on those things. He won on that in 2016. I mean, if you go back to 2016, you look at what he was actually doing. He didn't have any policy proposals. Trump was running by the skin of his teeth, and he was running off of name calling, and he was running off of crowd sizes, and this is the 2016 playbook all over again. So she's right about that, I think, this year. But he won that way in 2016.
Campaign needs to focus. That's the main thing. Look, this is a winnable election, but you need to focus.
Senator, do you agree with Nikki Haley's assessment?
Yeah, I don't think I don't look at Vice President Harris as a lunatic. I look at her as the most liberal person to ever be nominated for president.
And there it is. This has been the new turning point that they have been trying so hard to run with. The most liberal person to ever run for president. Forget about FDR, apparently, because FDR was further left. I mean, he got the New Deal. He got all the he got Social Security. You want to call Harris, and you want to call, I mean, hell, they'll even call Bernie. That's the thing is, she left to Bernie. That's Trump's thing. She's left to Bernie. But he said the same thing about Joe Biden. He was left to Bernie. The same thing about, I'm sure, Hillary Clinton. There's probably a clip that you could dig up with Trump saying that Hillary Clinton is left to Bernie. This is insane. And they're talking about the far left. You're talking about progressives, and really, it's not even that far left. If you look at politics on a full spectrum, and you look at liberal versus conservative, liberals in the United States are not even that far. They're not in. They're socialist policies, but guess what? Socialism, fire departments, schools, roads, police departments, all socialism, Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. Are you going to cut Medicare? Well, Republicans want to cut Medicare and Social Security. All of these social safety nets are socialism, but guess what? When you live in a society, that's how you keep the society afloat, especially when you live in a capitalist society, and we'll get to that. Let's watch a little bit more.
In the history of the United States, she's going to the Soviet Union playbook to lower prices called price control. She wants to eliminate.
Yeah, price controls. Do you know why she's going to price controls? Why she's talking about that kind of thing? Because the big corporations in this country are controlling the prices of everything, and they're raising them. This inflation that we've seen has not been inflation so much as it has been companies just deciding, hey, we're going to get together, we're going to make the prices, we're going to raise the prices up. It's price gouging, and it's illegal if they get caught. But the thing is they've built in so many loopholes that they have ways of getting around this stuff, and something has to be done. Companies cannot continue to get away with this, and that's what Harris is going after.
Private health care. She's for reparation.
Getting rid of private health care. Nothing wrong with the single-payer system. Guess what? It works great in Europe. It works great in Canada. The majority of the free world, most other major industrialized countries, have a single-payer system. And it works fine. We are the only major country and the only industrialized country that isn't going with socialized medicine, with a single-payer system. We need to catch up. We're falling behind. We need to join the 21st century.
She's against fracking. She's for the Green New Deal.
This will be brought up in just a minute, but she is not completely against fracking, although fracking, I think, is something that we need to really take a harder look at. And the Green New Deal is not a bad thing either. It creates jobs. It creates a lot of new jobs. and it changes over the grid, and it works towards a future where we can kind of wean ourselves off of fossil fuels, which we ultimately have to do, because guess what? Here's a hard check on a hard truth. As much as fossil fuels right now, we still need them. We still have to use them, and we can't just switch overnight, right? It has to be a slow thing. But no matter what we do, even if climate change wasn't a thing, even if we weren't warming the planet by putting these things out there, the fact of the matter is fossil fuels are a limited resource. Once they're gone, they're gone. So eventually, someday, we're going to have to be off them anyway. And if we can get solar and wind and hydropower and all that kind of stuff, if we can get all of that tuned up and get it really working and build our grids and change the way that we do things, we can have unlimited energy over time. We have to work there. We have to get there. Before vehicles, before planes, before engines were a thing, somebody took the leap and said, we need to build this technology. We need to make this happen. Cars weren't popular when they first, people walked the streets. The streets were for people. And everybody said, no, these cars will never catch on. They're too expensive. They're not worth it. Well, guess what? Everybody has a car now, and you almost have to have a car in most places to even get by. So it's the same thing with fracking, with the Green New Deal that he's just talking about. We have to drop off. We've got to back off of the fracking. We've got to back off of the gas, the oil. We need to wean ourselves off of that stuff. And things like the Green New Deal are a step in the right direction.
On and on and on. So I would make it about policy. A nightmare for Harris is to defend her policy choice.
A nightmare for Harris is to defend her policy choices. Donald Trump doesn't have any policies. No, that's not right. Donald Trump's policy is Project 2025. And if you don't know about Project 2025, go learn about Project 2025, because it is terrifying. And Trump will sit there and he'll say, oh, I know nothing about Project 2025. I'm not involved in it at all. Yes, he is. Former Trump administration officials are the ones who wrote Project 2025. He is well aware of Project 2025 and what all it entails. And the minute he gets power, the people that have written this, he's going to bring those people in to establish all of the things that are in there to create a new country. That's what Donald Trump is planning on doing. Not because he cares about Project 2025, because make no mistake, he doesn't give two shits. Donald Trump doesn't really care what direction the country goes in. Donald Trump cares what will get him elected and keep him out of prison. That's the only thing he cares about.
Choices. Every day we're not talking about her policy choices as vice president, and what she would do as president is a good day for her and a bad day for us.
And of course, her campaign has said she's actually not opposed to fracking. But the broader question here.
By the way, if you just noticed, and I'm not gonna go back to do it. You can rewind it and look. But the way he just licked his lips made me think of Barty Crouch Jr. Harry Potter. If you've ever seen Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, go back and watch that. Barty Crouch has this thing. It's only in the movies where he'll lick his lips almost like a lizard, a snake or whatever. That's what Lindsey Graham just did, and it was hilarious.
Right.
Senator Graham.
How can you be for the Green New Deal? Wait a minute. How can you be for the Green New
He can't help himself.
Deal and not be opposed to fracking?
Well,
that's BS.
Okay.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Let me ask you, big picture, bottom line me here. Do you think former President Trump should stop talking about Vice President Harris's race and intelligence?
Yeah, I think my view is that me and Nikki need to go to Georgia. We're giving advice on TV to President Trump.
Now, you see how long it's going to take him to answer this. This is why I hate politicians. This is a classic tactic of politicians. You obfuscate. You don't answer the question directly, because all he had to say was, we can't win if he keeps doing this. But he's got to be right. Oh, we need to go. We need to help campaign for him.
Trump. He's got a lot of critics. He's got a lot of advisors. But to Nikki Haley and DeSantis and Youngkin and all these great people we have, let's get together and actually campaign for the guy rather than just give advice. But in the advice-giving column, here's what I would say. President Trump can win this election.
Now, you see what he did there? who goes from Donald Trump to President Trump. Here's the deal. And this is kind of nitpicking a little bit. But yes, typically of former presidents, we will still... Usually they can be called president or former president. But the way that they're doing it, the way that Trump and Lindsey Graham and people are doing it, they are trying to instill this idea that he is still president because they don't believe he lost in 2020. Reality is that they know that he lost in 2020, but they don't want to put that out there because they need it. They need the division. They need people to be against each other and to hate each other so that they can get what they want done.
His policies are good for America, and if you have a policy debate for president, he wins. Donald Trump, the provocateur, the showman, may not win this election. So I'm looking for President Trump.
May not win this election as a showman, as a provocateur. And that is a very important distinction because what he's drawing here is the way that Trump is acting, he might not win. Now, in reality, the facts are that there's a good chance that Donald Trump's going to get his ass kicked in November. There's a good chance that there's going to be a landslide victory in November for Kamala Harris. And people like Lindsey Graham and a lot of these Republicans are kind of sitting on the fence and they're being very careful about how they approach these things because of that very fact. Because if he loses, it's going to be a scramble. The first couple of months after he loses, it's going to be all arguing about how it was a rigged and fake election and blah, 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 trying to fight it in the courts. But once we get past January 20th, once Kamala Harris has been officially inaugurated as the 47th president of the United States, it falls back to then what's the next steps for the Republican Party. And we'll talk more about that maybe in a minute or in another video. I'm not sure. Let's get through the rest of this.
To show up in the last 80 days to define what he will do for our country, to fix broken borders, to lower inflation, the numbers that Americans are...
To fix broken borders, to lower inflation. Here's the deal. Inflation just dropped below 3% for the first time since 2021. That is a fact. Jobless claims are down. Jobless numbers have been down at some of their lowest levels in 4 years. The border, they love to talk about the border. They had a border bill, a bipartisan, very conservative border bill that Republicans were for until Donald Trump called and said, hey, I don't need you to pass this. We need you to vote no. Because if the border bill passed, if there was some resolution to the issues at the border, guess who loses? That's the only thing he has to run on right now is the border. And his plan for the border is deport everybody with brown skin and lock it down. That's his plan for the border.
We're living with under Harris-Biden are terrible. 50% increase in gas prices, mortgage rates going through the roof, grocery costs are really high. That's what I would...
Yeah, a lot of that is true. Grocery prices are up. Mortgage rates are through the roof. Things aren't great, but guess what? As far as economic recovery is concerned, we have one of the best economic recoveries from COVID in the world. Under what Joe Biden has done, under what the first couple of years of the Democratic Congress, and the Build Back Better, and the infrastructure bill, and all of those things, we have had one of the strongest recoveries in the world following COVID. So yeah, things are still rocky. We're still kind of working our way through it. But under Donald Trump's plans, everything's going to get worse again. The tariffs that he wants to raise, the things that he wants to do to export, kick immigrants out of the country, and all the things that he wants to do are going to make things worse economically.
Focus on policy. Yeah. Policy is the key to the White House.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about...
And there it is. So that was the video I kind of wanted to cover. Here's the thing. If Donald Trump wins in November, this is not something that we're going to be able to come back from. This is not something that we're going to be able to say, well, we'll just get him in the next election. Donald Trump is a sickness on the country. He's a pathetic human being whose only goal is to keep himself out of jail. That is all he cares about. He has got himself in such a bad... Because he spent years as a real estate developer and all the other failed businesses that he had. He spent years breaking laws, sliding by people that he worked with, people that worked for him went to jail for things, and he was sued for fraud and all the other things, with Trump University and Trump Steaks and all the stuff and all the shit that he did. He was a bad businessman, and he was doing illegal things, but getting away with it because in the business world, they let you do it. In the business world, if you are big enough, if you're popular enough, you can get away with just about anything you want to do. But when you run for political office, things change. The microscope changes. We like to. Everybody likes to say that the politicians are corrupt and they're just greedy and all of this stuff. And yeah, there's truth to that. But behind all of it, if you cross certain lines, there's always been a thing there where you would wind up in trouble. You would wind up, you could not cross those lines. Look at Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon resigned because his own party was going to vote to remove him from office. He was going to be the first president impeached and removed. And you look at some of these people over history that have done these things that have just like ruined their political careers. And it didn't even have to be anything bad. I mean, Howard Dean in 2004 let out an excited whoop and his political career was over at that point. Scandals used to mean something. Scandals used to get you in a lot of trouble, and they still do, to the extent of, we've had people kicked out of Congress just in the past couple of years for being criminals. And Donald Trump, twice impeached, 34-count convicted felon, found guilty of sexual assault, liable for sexual assault. Like, all of these things just pile up and pile up and pile up, and people try to come out of the woodwork, and Donald Trump will say, well, the system's coming after me, the system's rigged. And the truth is that he's just now getting called out, and he's actually being held accountable for the things because he chose to run for president. That was one thing that he was right about in 2016, is that running for president, he could have just had it easy. He could have just run along his way, running his businesses and been fine, but he chose to run for president. And the reason he chose to run for president was because he wanted some brand recognition built back up. The Apprentice wasn't doing as well, and people were kind of, Donald Trump was falling out of the limelight. He'd run for president once before, but it didn't really go anywhere. He was a third party. So he decided, hey, I'm going to run for president, realizing that he was probably going to lose. He didn't expect to win, which is why in 2016, when he did win, it was such a shock, even to him. He didn't expect to win that election. And when he loses in November, there's going to be a couple of months of just kind of chaos of the courts and of people freaking out, calling it rigged and calling it fake and blah, blah, blah. And then we're going to move past that. January 20th is going to come and go. And the next thing is going to be the Republican Party trying to figure out, what do they do next? I made a video a while back, earlier this year, talking about the Republican Party is dead. And it was the day that Nikki Haley dropped out of the race. As I said, was the death of the Republican Party, officially. And I still hold true to that. I don't think the Republican Party has a future. I think the future is going to be in a different party. I think the disenfranchised Republicans, the people that cannot stand Trump, I'm talking about the Republicans for Harris groups that are forming right now. I think those Republicans, because they have policy differences from the Democrats, that is going to be the new future of the party. And it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. And some of them, I feel like it's going to be like a separation of like moderate Democrats that are going to be going over there. And you're going to have a more liberal-leaning Democratic Party and a more conservative, middle-of-the-road Republican Party. And I don't even know that it'll be called Republican. But that's... What can you do when you have somebody that has become a leech on the party and that loses as much as he loses? Because let's be real, Donald Trump has not won an election. Donald Trump won the Electoral College in 2016, but Donald Trump has lost the popular vote both times that he ran. He has not won an election. And I'll do a video about the Electoral College at some point because that needs to go. But that's the facts. And I said earlier, I'm partially terrified. I'm excited. I'm partially terrified because I'm excited for what Kamala Harris can do. I'm excited for Tim. I love what I've heard from Tim Walz so far. Dude is awesome. But if something happens, if people don't get off their asses and go vote, if people sit around and continue to make excuses for the bullshit from Donald Trump, he could win. And what's really scary is when I hear people talking about like the whole Israel and Hamas and Palestine situation with Gaza, and these people that are mad or upset about Biden and Harris and what they've done or haven't done. And all I can say to that is, if you don't like what they've done, just wait until Donald Trump gets into power. Because if you think it's bad now, we'll have U.S. troops rolling side by side with Israeli troops, flattening the Gaza Strip. Even more so than has already been done. Like, that's not even a joke. That is what Donald Trump will do. He has said as much. So it's important. We need to get out in November. We need to keep calling stuff like this out. This is my way of kind of contributing to the cause and trying to jump in there because I don't have a huge platform and YouTube isn't going to show this video to anybody probably, but maybe they will. And if they do, I want to make my voice heard, and I want, maybe I can be the one that convinces somebody out there to come across and say, yeah, you know what? We need to fight against this guy. And then maybe if we can get this guy and his sycophants out of our politics, maybe in 2028 we can have an actual policy discussion between whether to reelect President Harris or whoever comes up as the more conservative nominee. You know, and I'd be happy to have that policy discussion. If we want to discuss what we do about ABC or whatever policy, whatever we want to discuss, we can discuss that. But right now it's important that we call the bullshit out, that we fight against the tyranny that Donald Trump and his sycophants want to bring upon us. We need to call it out. We need to fight against it. And we need to shout out, we are not going back. So that's all I got for this one. I do want to thank you if you've made it this far. Well, a little bit longer than I planned on it. But I really wanted to go over this video, and I wanted to talk about this stuff because it's super important. I'm going to try to do another couple of videos during the DNC this week. Maybe after some of the speeches and stuff. Maybe it will depend on how I feel and what I'm thinking. The kids start school and everything, so we'll see. We'll see how things go. But I want to thank you all for watching. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.